My name's Mike Stark. I blog for the Crooked Dope. I do a little bit of reporting up here.
Oh, I see.
I believe your name was on the list of 30 senators that voted against Senator Franken's bill, the amendment to the appropriations bill that would have prevented any appropriations going to any government contractor that forced rape victims into arbitration as opposed to giving them their day in court. Do you remember that vote?
I do.
Can you tell us why you voted the way you did on that? Because a lot of people think that the folks that were the 30-member minority are standing with corporations rather than rape victims. They just don't understand your perspective. Can you?
Yeah, well, I think that in the corporate employer-employee relationship, that's best defined by the parties to the agreement. And the federal government shouldn't try to write every employment agreement for employees or corporations.
But you can't contract yourself into slavery. And I guess what people don't understand is, why should you be allowed to contract yourself away from getting your day in court when you've been raped or gang raped even, and then the corporation tells you to go back and work with the people that gang raped you? Don't you deserve your day in court?
Well, certainly everybody deserves a day in court if they feel like they've been wronged in any way whatsoever.
But these arbitration agreements,
to law.
But these arbitration agreements prevent them from getting their day in court, and that's what Senator Franken was trying to fix.
Well, if an employee had agreed to those circumstances and to those employment,
do you think anyone was really? Do you think anyone was reading the employment contract that closely and ever conceived that they could be gang raped and then forced into arbitration?
Every employee has the right to know what's in the contractual agreement and language.
I absolutely agree, but what I'm saying, and I think you have to agree with this, no woman when she signed that contract thought that she was signing away her right to a day in court when a company forces her to work with her rapists.
Well, I think if an employee has been misled in any way whatsoever, there ought to be a way to redress that wrong.
Why can you, I assume you're okay with the government saying you cannot sign a contract and indenture yourself or sign yourself into slavery. So why would you be okay with that, but you're not okay with preventing contracts that prohibit?
I think I've already answered your question. That
what's the difference between slavery and rape? I mean, isn't it is it a matter of degrees? Rape's not as bad as slavery?
If I oppose the federal government writing employment contracts.
So you would allow people to contract into slavery?
No, I think the employee and the employer should be able to reach agreement on employment conditions, but the federal government shouldn't write the employment agreements for all employees.
Well, here they weren't. What actually was happening was the government was saying that we will not contract with you if you contain these provisions. So it's kind of like a quality control thing. The government says what you need to have, the standards you need to meet, and if you can't meet our standards, then you can't have government money. So it's not really the government writing the government contracts. They could still write the government contracts to force arbitration, but they just won't be able to get any government contracts. So
well, you ought to run for Congress yourself. You know so much about it and what's right and wrong.
Well, I did go to UVA Law School, and I took alternative dispute resolution, and I just don't think that
to speak on the floor of the Senate.
And I just don't think that forcing women that have been gang raped to work with their rapists and then denying them their day in court is in anybody's interest.
Well, that's certainly subject to judicial review.
Senator, I'm going to let you go now because I don't think we're getting any further with this conversation. But I do understand.
Well, I think I responded to every question you asked.
You did. You've been fantastic.